Hi, this is Jeff Georgianis here to talk to you about jewelry tools from my buddies at Otto Frei. Today, we're going to talk about Jig Vise Mitre cutters. Now, Otto Frei currently has 4 different models of this tool. 2 are the value line models made in Pakistan. 1 is the ASIC model made in France. The last is the Swiss-made Bergeon model, which is the top of the line one, and truly, this is a beauty of a tool. One more thing that these tools have in common is, well, they don't come with an instruction manual. So today we're going to talk about how they work and some things that you can do with them. So the main thing these tools do is they help you with the difficult task of making perfectly straight cuts at various angles, either 90 or 45 degrees. One of the jig vises adds a third slot for making 60 and 120 degree cuts. Besides getting a perfectly flat cut at your chosen angle, you can also use these jig vises to get repeatable cuts at a very precise length. So let's show you how they work. You can either mount the jig vise in a vise, like I'm doing here with a graver's ball, or you can wedge it into a bench pin. To file an angle, you want to put the metal into the proper slot, tighten it down, and have it poke out a little bit. Then you're going to take a file and rub it back and forth against the tool. So here's a piece of 16 gauge wire with a perfect 90-degree angle to it. Now let's do a 45. Same thing. Going to have the metal poke out a little bit, tighten it down, then start to file. There you go. Here's a 45-degree angle. Now you may end up with a little burr on there, and you could deal with it in 2 ways. One is you could toss it into a tumbler. The other would be to get some kind of abrasive wheel and just take the burr off. Here's a little sample piece that I made where I took 4 pieces of metal, cut to the exact same length, cut 45-degree angles into each side, and then soldered the whole thing together to make a pretty perfect square. Let's say you wanted to make a band ring. So here's a piece of half-round wire. I'm going to take this metal and I'm going to put it into this part right here, which is going to make a 90-degree angle. Now I'm going to just take my file and file it flat. So now I have a perfect 90-degree angle that I can take half-round pliers and bend to a perfect joint for a perfect solder seam. But I could also do the same thing with bezel wire to make a perfect butt joint. I line the bezel up, put a little mark, cut it just a little longer than my mark, put it into the 90-degree slot, line it up just where my mark is, and then file a perfect butt joint. So there you go. This is ready to solder and round out to be a perfect bezel. So if you want to cut something to a specific length, you need to use the stop. And the stops are really easy to work with. You adjust it to whatever length you want. So there's a few pieces cut to the same length. When you're cutting tubing with the jig vise, you want to cut part way through. Turn it, and it's going to make it easier to make a straight cut. The jig vise is a really easy way to cut pieces of tubing the exact same length to make perfect knuckles for a hinge. So one of the interesting things about this particular tool is that it's going to work better to not use your best file. If you use a really hard file, like the Valtitan files that Otto Frei sells, which are super hard, it's going to scratch up your jig vise. Now this is one that's a little old, and it's been used primarily with hard files, so you can see it's pretty well scratched up. But one thing that I've noticed is that even though it's scratched up, it still works just as well. It's really just a cosmetic thing. Another thing about these tools is that they're made of tool steel, not stainless steel. So if they're in a humid atmosphere, or really even oil from your hands, if they're touched a lot, could leave rusty fingerprints on them. So after you're done using them, you want to make sure that you wipe it down with a light coating of some kind of oil. This is a tip that Steve Frei told me about that his grandfather Otto taught him, which is to keep tools like this wrapped in an oil-soaked rag, and they'll stay perfect forever. So now the question remains, which one to get? The value line units are very serviceable, and they're very well made. For the money, they're pretty hard to beat. The ASIC model is made in France, and for that extra money, you get a bit better fit and finish, and you get that European pedigree that European tools are so famous for. The top-of-the-line Bergion model is made in Switzerland, and it's exceptionally well made. Everything fits together perfectly, and it's the 5-star experience. So if that's the kind of tool that you want, then this is the right one for you. So that's the basics of how these Jig Vise miter cutters work. They have a lot of possibilities, and for many jewelers, they're a tool that they just can't live without. So once again, this has been Jeff Georgianis talking about jewelry tools and how to use them for my good friends at Otto Frei. If you like this video on the Jig Vise miter cutters, please hit the like button below. And while you're at it, you might as well hit the subscribe button as well, because I know you don't want to miss any of the jewelry tech tip videos coming your way soon from the good folks at Otto Frei. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.